So this panel is all about talking about digital enterprise version 2030. What will the digital enterprise look like in 2030? It's almost a trite to say that every company is a digital enterprise today. But what we are here is not to predict what it will look like, but to anticipate what an enterprise of 2030 will look like. What will that business model look like? What will be on CIO's mind from a transformation perspective? What would be the talent challenges for the CIOs, et cetera? So I have an esteemed panel. We have missing one member, Melissa. She has some travel conflict, so she could not join us. But we are three of us. We will make sure that we fill up the entire time. But more importantly, please think of questions, ask questions. And if you have a perspective, happy to add your perspective as well. So let me just start with my introduction first. I am a former Chief Innovation Strategy and Digital Officer from Toyota Financial Services. Over 30 years of experience driving digital transformation as part of my roles as CIO, as well as a consulting partner with Capgemini and Ernst & Young. So Alan Tate, who is our executive chair for the CIO Symposium, by the way, let's give him a round of applause. So he pulled me in, and now I'm volunteering for the symposium, so which I'm happy to do. Right. So let's start with, on my left is Amar Maletira, and he is currently the CEO of Rackspace Technology, a multi-cloud solutions company. Amar joined Rackspace in 2020 as the president. He has been in the technology industry for nearly 30 years, working for global companies such as Siemens, HCL, Hewlett-Packard, and Viavi, which was formerly JDS Uniphase. And he has been in various technology leadership roles, executive leadership roles, spanning sales, business development, operations, and finance. He also serves as an advisor for late-stage startups. Given his breadth of experience in technology industry, we are really honored to have Amar on this panel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we also have Alex Singla. Alex Singla is a senior partner of McKinsey and Company, and he is the global leader of Quantum Black, the data and artificial intelligence arm of McKinsey. For over 20 years with McKinsey, he has been helping companies transform by deploying digital data analytics solutions. He is a member of Analytics 50, which is a group of senior data analytics executives. He's a mentor to tech startups, accepted into Creative Destruction Lab. I'll say this again, Creative Destruction Lab program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He's currently contributing to a book on digital and AI transformation by McKinsey, which is due to be out next month. It is my honor to invite you to this panel, Alex. So let's start with Alex, right? Alex, take us to 2030. Right? What will be on CIO's mind in 2030? What kind of transformation topics will we be talking about in 2030? So just paint a picture for us to start this conversation.
Yeah, and maybe before I just share some views on that, I'll just start with two framing points. One is the number 20%, and the other one is Amazon Alexa, virtual reality headsets, and TikTok. 20% is the percentage of Fortune 500 companies that weren't a Fortune 500 company 7 years ago. And so I think that percent will be greater in the next 7 years because of these digital transformations, and who will be able to advance faster will leapfrog some of those companies in the Fortune 500 today. And the second, around Alexa, virtual reality headsets, and TikTok, are three things my kids absolutely love that didn't exist 7 or 8 years ago. And so if you just think of the speed of change and evolution, I think that's what we're going to even see a faster pace going forward as we get to 2030. So if I would just start to think about 2030, I think there's 4 things that could be on the minds of top teams and CIOs. The first would be the CIO is the next CEO. And that has been said before, but I don't think there will be ever a time like now that we will actually see that transpire more and more, even faster, as the CIO becomes the next CEO in 7 years' time. And I think what they're going to have is these leaders will have just this general notion of like a bias to action, a much greater data-driven decision-making framework, and elements like that test and learn that will really require these leading organizations to be digital transformations in 2030. The second thing I would say that would be on the minds is speed. Speed is a strategy. It will be a differentiator with how companies compete. Great products will always kind of win in the market, but those companies that have the speed to innovate, adopt, and shape their organizations to change will be the ones that will be able to leapfrog others much faster in the market. And then the third thing I think that will be on people's minds is this notion of democratization of technology. And what do I mean by that is, I don't think tech will just sit within the organization of the IT organization. I think with low code, no code, generative AI, these products and solutions are going to get pushed much further down to frontline employees, business leaders, consumers, and customers in a way in which those organizations that are able to do that will get a real competitive advantage because their employees will become more technologically capable, but they'll also be just that much smarter to make quick decisions. So those would be a couple of thoughts.
That's great, Alex. Amar, your thoughts?
Well, I think I'll just add a couple of points here. Very well said, I think the last point. I think technology has been enabling the business in the last decade or so, and it has been redefining the business in the last, probably 4 or 5 years. I think technology is going to be the business going forward, and that's very key on how you define what the CEO's role will evolve to. And I think you're spot on from that perspective.
And part of this is, as I think about from a CIO role perspective, the landscape, the technology ecosystem is growing in a way that a lot of our workloads will be kind of happening outside the domain of our organizations. And so in that context, does it then change the way decisions will be made in the C-suite around technology and digital transformation?
Oh, that's a great question. So, in my role, I meet with a lot of CIOs, every month, about 20, 25 CIOs. And if you look at in today's organization, in organizations that are going through some form of digital transformation, the technology decision making for those organizations are very fragmented. They're very distributed. And I'm sure a lot of CIOs sitting in the room can attest to it. Business line leaders are weighing in on those decision making. And a lot of those new technologies are rented as opposed to owned. And this is creating a huge complexity for the CIOs to manage, govern, and drive efficiencies. Now it is still manageable, right, Vipin, because it is not scaled yet. But as Alex mentioned, as we start seeing, I think we are at the cusp of an acceleration in the digital transformation. Because when you think about all these technologies, enablers, they are lining up very well. I think they are also crossing the chasm in terms of adoption. Take cloud as an example, AI, blockchain, even IoTs. We are talking about edge computing now, even AR and digital twins. They're all becoming a reality. And what that will do is, with this acceleration in transformation, it is going to profoundly change the decision-making dynamics in the C-suite, right? Because it's going to significantly transform the business model. We talked about a product, or an omni-channel, say, business model going to a more platform-centric. And I was very inspired by your story on what you did in the Toyota financial services, right? Products are going to change, the industry boundaries are going to fade, the competitive landscape is going to change. So from a decision-making perspective, the CEOs will have to be more tech savvy than ever before. And mostly as you go drive this mindset change, I believe that it will have to be driven top down, and all the C-level execs will have to be a catalyst for this change. And more importantly, the CIO will be at the epicenter of making technology decisions going forward. And there are 3 imperatives, I believe. One is, you mentioned it in your question itself, because more and more of these new technologies will be rented than owned. And this is going to create immense complexity from a supply chain perspective. And that has to be managed and governed, and only CIO's organization can do it. Number two, I think there'll be more focus on cybersecurity, because no technological decisions can be made without the influence of cybersecurity. And fourth and third, there is an imperative across all the organizations and companies on environmental sustainability. That's why I think the fulcrum will shift, and it will be more pivoted towards CIOs making the technology decisions. And to Alex's point, the CIOs will have to be more business-oriented than ever before, right? Yeah. So I think that's how the dynamics are going to shift from my perspective.
And I think part of what you are highlighting is there is a new supply chain that is being built.
Yep.
As CIOs, now we have to worry about the digital supply chain, because the business capabilities in a corporation are dependent on these services that are, or software that is provided by a supplier who is dependent on another supplier, and so on and so forth, and not understanding that supply chain can create a lot of risk. So, Alex, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I would add a couple of more things to your list, which I completely agree with. I think one, in addition to the CEO becoming much more technological savvy, I think the entire C-suite will have to become much more technological savvy. I say this, my kids are teenage kids, and I say, if you don't understand technology, I just can't envision a world in which you can have a successful 20, 30-year career. Like, if you're under 40 years old, I just can't imagine a world in which technology is not going to be fundamental to you being able to succeed in your career. And so I would just broaden it to the entire C-suite will have to become much, much more technological savvy. The second thing I would say is, as you think about this ecosystem of capabilities, one of the topics that is being raised by every organization I spend time with today, particularly around generative AI, is around risk management, which we call like responsible AI, or what we call digital trust. And this notion that as you have these ecosystem of companies that are now working with you, you're going to have to think about risk management much broader than just your four walls. These are organizations that are working on your behalf, doing analysis on your behalf, providing capacity on your behalf, but yet you're going to be held accountable to your shareholders, the markets, your employees and customers on this notion of responsible AI and digital trust. And so I think it just becomes a more complicating but manageable thing that will be really, really important. I have this phrase on the digital trust thing. I say, digital trust is about taking the AI black box and turning it into the AI glass box. Because I think in 7 years' time, you're going to have a real level of transparency around how you make decisions, why the machines and the technology made these decisions, that people are going to want to understand. And the excuse that says it's in a black box, I just can't see that flying in 5, 6, 7 years.
So in a way, what we're describing here is in about 7 years, the technology ecosystem is going to get more interdependent, more complex. The C-suite dynamics are going to change, which will center around the CIO's role. And part of this is, I think, not just the CEO, but the entire C-suite have to be digitally savvy. So basically, the digital transformation is not just IT's job, it's everyone's job in the organization. Which leads to our next question, which is talent. To be in a digital enterprise where everyone has to contribute and everyone needs to understand how to harness the power of software. So let's talk about what would be the talent challenges of 2030 on CIO's mind. You want to start, Amar?
Yeah, I think, let me get started. So I think if you take a look at today's IT organization, it's a very specialist-oriented organization. You have a specialist for infrastructure. Within that, you'll have a specialist for networking. You'll have a specialist for storage. You have an application specialist. You have a database specialist, et cetera. And you see that now that fading. With the emergence of cloud, you don't have to worry about who manages the infrastructure because your cloud provider will do that. And so I think we will see the specialist role morphing into a more generalist role. But with full stack, we talked about it today. Full stack CIO as an example. So someone who understands both business and technology, and that is going to be key in this kind of. So I think it's anybody's. And I have some other ideas, but I'll let Alex opine on this.
So let me kind of intercept that. So Alex, when I think about this, the future in context of workplace, it's about worker, the work, the workplace, and the ways of working. Everything is going to reshape differently. So as we talk about the specific skills, let's kind of broaden that kind of aperture a little bit and see what do you see out there in 2030?
Let me hit on your ways of working,
Yeah.
because I think that will become fundamentally critical. Even today, every organization is trying to figure out how does technology and the business work together. We all see in these organizations, some do it distinctively well and some do it a lot less well. And there's everything in the middle. And I think the ways of working will become even more critical in putting cross-functional teams together to actually solve real business problems, where it's not technology throwing something over the wall and it's not business asserting technology and what it needs. But that is messy. That's messy today in most organizations. It doesn't always work well. But I think those that will eventually win over time will be those that actually figure out how to do that, ways of working where they have cross-functional teams of IT and business actually working very well together. What I think will be also interesting is this notion of low code and no code. So all of a sudden, again, the democratization of technology down into the organization, where people are able to solve some problems and see what technology can do for them that may or may not have any real technological background with no code, low code. And so I think this merger of the how will become even more critical than it is today.
Can I build on
please,
this a little bit? So, we did a survey very recently for in all the pharma life science companies in our company, and we had 44 respondents, CTO, CIO level, respond to it. And more than 2/3 of the respondents said AI and ML, which is not surprising at all, because pharma, is typically they are early adopters. They use AI ML to accelerate drug discovery and deployment, et cetera. So it was not surprising. But 68% said AI and ML is leading their business and IT strategy. More than 70% said that tech talent is going to be the biggest issue to go implement it. But nobody knows the answer, what tech talent is needed, right? So it's to his point, we have to go discover as we go forward. But I was talking to our CTO of the company, Srini Kaushik, who I consider as a leading thinker, an original thinker. And I said, Srini, how will AI change the workforce? And the way he explained to us was, he explained it in a very simple way, and I thought it really made sense. He said, listen, AI is going to enhance the experiences of your workforce. It is going to unlock immense productivity and efficiency, and we are all aware of that. And he said, listen, let me give you a simple example, right? Look at how navigation system has evolved. We had compasses, we had maps, we had atlas, and we then had GPS. Now we have self-driven car. It has evolved over a period of time, but the core reason why we need to have navigation is to go from point A to point B. That has not changed, but it has really enhanced the experience, the mobility experience. Now you can enjoy the ride. You don't have to get into the technicalities of how navigation is done, right? And that's what AI is going to bring to your workforce. So then the question becomes, okay, what do you really need from your workforce, right? And as we were thinking through this, said, we need to go retrain our workforce, our talented workforce, to increase their cognitive capacity so that they can take higher challenges. And so then the question becomes, okay, what are the kinds of skills then you need? I said, there are 4 skills. One is they have to be creative, they have to be original, because you need to continuously be innovative to go, solve those bigger problems. Number 2, critical thinking and problem solving and reasoning will never go away. 3rd is analytical skills. And 4th, more important, is resiliency and flexibility, right? Because we may think it's going to be a less stressful environment, but remember, AI may help to become more productive, but it's going to elevate everybody's competitive level. So you got to take it to the next level. It's going to be more stressful, I think, compared to what we have today. With all the technologies we have, I think life has not become less stressful. So now you have to train your workforce to be more resilient and more, and that's, I thought was brilliant in way of thinking, because we are always thinking about technical skills, But this is the skills that we will need to go develop in our workforce tomorrow to really cope up with these challenges.
Amar, I love that, and I love the analogy. I think it's so spot on. I would say, the other thing that we're starting to see on the people side is, I think AI and technology will just create levels of proficiency of your younger tenured colleagues. And so as people come into the organization, their competency to solve a problem, do something in the field, or fix some machine will just increase. So what used to have to take 5, 10, 15, 20 years to become proficient, you get proficient on day one. And so the level of talent and ability to be flexible and adapt and resilient, I think, is so spot on. And because people's levels of competency will just increase much faster than in what it was before.
Yeah, no, great.
And no college teaches you that.
No.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because 2030 is not that far, 7 years from now, right? So as CIOs, we are all building the talent for the future. That's the talent that is coming into the organization now, and the talent that's already in the organization, they're going to be in manager or leadership positions in 7 years from now. So what would be your advice to them? What actions can they take now to start building the talent of 2030?
You want to start?
I'll let you take that one.
As I said, this is the most, I think, so I think, listen, I think you have to go identify the talents you have currently in the organization. It starts there, Again, it is not the technical skills and the business skills. Of course, you need to develop business-oriented technical capabilities, and you'll identify those. But you really need talent that is forward-thinking and forward-leaning. And that's somewhere you got to start. We talked about yesterday some of the talent development skills that you implemented in Toyota, which was very impressive. So I think that's where I would start.
Yeah, listen, I think this is one of the hottest questions that we're getting asked around talent, and what's this going to mean for my organization today and for the future and the type of talent we need to recruit. I don't think anyone has the perfect answer, quite frankly. I've been on the phone and I've been on some conversations with leading universities who are actually thinking about what does this mean in terms of what college curriculum should we be putting together for our technical and our computer science major? How does our curriculums change? What does this mean for them? And who should we be bringing in the door and accepting into our programs? And so I think this is a continuous evolving world. But I will continue to come back to having this notion of, to your point, flexibility, problem-solving skills, creativity.
Exactly.
At the same time, technical, analytical mindset will be important, because I think the merger of the two will be the rock stars of the future.
Yeah, and I'll just here add, because when talking to Melissa, I think she kind of reminded me of this also, is that we tend to, when we talk about talent, we tend to talk about talent acquisition, and I would say disproportionately. The reality is most of the talent already exists in the organization that's going to grow with us. So even if we apply the best talent acquisition strategies, we can fill maybe 20% of the gap. So the question for us as CIOs is, what do we do with that 80%, and how do we grow them and get them ready for 2030? And I think that's an important point for us to consider.
I think that's brilliant. It's always about build, buy, partner. So you got to develop, that is your build from within. You have to go acquire new talent, so you got to identify what talent you need. But most importantly, I think that's a fundamental question here is, you have to partner. So you will not only rent infrastructure or software, which you're already doing today in a SaaS model or infrastructure as a service model, but you will also be renting the talent that is needed. So I think that's a brilliant observation.
So I'm watching the clock, and I know we are between this and the closure of this event. So let's open up for any Q&A. I don't see any questions online here, but anyone in the audience, I would open it up, or if anyone wants to share their perspective on enterprise version 2030. I have a list of questions. Okay, please. Mike is coming. Yeah.
I'm just going to go with a very candid question. Hi, I'm Priyanka Nagpal from Gravitas Consulting. You were speaking about the 80% of the workforce that already, the talent that already exists, are you experimenting or exploring any structural or organizational sort of changes on how the talent grows through the pipeline, how you retain them, to reward some of the skills that you've talked about, right? Creativity, entrepreneurial, analytical. And just to give you an example, I worked with one of the largest corporate investment banks, and for the first time, they introduced this change of real-time promotions. What that meant is that if you can prove that you are eligible and you have the experience, not in the number of years, for a role, and you might be an analyst, you can go to vice president directly, real time, and not wait for 3 years, 4 years that used to conventionally happen. Obviously, the number of people who actually qualified for that or went through that was rare, but I think that was a huge, I don't know if I can call it an experiment, but it is a big statement. So I'd like to understand if there's some creative ways that you're thinking about how you create that future workforce with the larger aperture you talked about.
Great question. Thank you. Perspectives.
Yeah, so I think there are two things embedded in that. One is how do you create it, how do you retain talent, and so on, and how you reward, right? I think I'll just tell you, it goes back to the basics of managing and leading, right? Your talent, you retain talent, you can provide them a career path, which is one way to go about it. But I think the sense of purpose of being in an organization is the most important retention tool I've seen in 30 years of managing and leading, right? Once you lose the sense of purpose, whether it's your company or your organization, you start losing talent. So I think bringing back, and as you become a digital organization and digital enterprise, I think your business model is going to morph and it's going to evolve. And I think it's important to keep that sense of purpose intact so that you can retain talent and develop talent. Anything else you want to add?
I'll just add, listen, I think you're spot on certain dimensions because, I see organizations are bringing in different levels of talent horizontally. So it's not like you started a company and you're working through it for 20 years anymore. You're coming in laterally. And so organizations are starting to think about, what I would describe as like capability horizons. So what are the skills and capabilities I have? And maybe instead of saying, it typically takes 6 years to get to a VP or an EVP or SVP from a director level, they're saying, what are the skills and capabilities I have? And what have I demonstrated to leapfrog? And if that happens in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and not 3 years, people are focusing more on capabilities than tenure sometimes. And I'm seeing that more and more happening. It is hard to judge because the people who have gotten to that level have typically gotten there over time. But I think that is a shift that we might possibly see over time to reward talent to accelerate. As we all know, people don't want to sit in an organization for, like many of us, 5, 10, 20 years to get promoted. They want to leapfrog if they think they have the skills and they're ready to take those moves. Yep. And so I do think that will be an element of how people think about talent retention and promotion.
Great. Arvind, you have a question?
Yes. Professor Autor mentioned that one of the capabilities of AI is to help people with lower skills initially get better skills. That online computers, technology, it will help raise the skills of people that before may have gotten left behind. Now the question is, what can you do to make sure that the people with less skill feel comfortable upgrading their skills? That is, or is it a case that maybe you're not hiring people without college degrees who are the people who maybe could more benefit from this? Because maybe we need to rethink the whole work population since they can get help from technology.
You want to take that?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Listen, I think there's two schools of thought. There's some who could argue that Gen AI will make the lesser skilled Like if you say low-cost system integrators, will that be a needed skill in the future? I don't know. Will Gen AI just replace that degree in which those people will have to get skilled much faster than normal? So as we think of the evolution of talent, I do think even the lesser skilled or underrepresented will have to leapfrog because technology will do it for them, or they'll go into different sectors which require not that level of talent. Because I struggle with the fact that, if generative AI is, today we're already seeing taking old code to new code, writing COBOL to Python, that's already happening. Today, that's hundreds of people doing that in a system integration environment. I can't imagine that happens in 2 or 3 years' time. If that technology gets to a place in which that, the efficacy of that shift happens. And so I think that will continue to, I think Amar's comment is spot on. It will continue to just raise the bar on what is low skilled in any environment.
There was one more question. We'll take that one. That's the last question before we wrap up.
On the similar notes of talent and the way, we have taken many years from get away from waterfall to agile to product to, scrums and, 2 pizza teams and whatever not, right? In next 7, 8 years, do you see same structures or do you see 2 donut teams rather than 2 pizza teams and having a composition of only 4 people running stuff rather than, so many engineers and so many, the whole foundation of the way we think about technology development is going to change according to you?
Absolutely. I'll just say absolutely. It'll change it faster than what we think, to be honest, right? And I think there will be an ecosystem of partners that will help you to get there. I don't believe you can do it alone. And I don't believe you should do it alone because you need to, the technology is evolving so fast, and I can see that in my business itself as I go and talk to the CIOs, even in the cloud space. It's evolved so fast. I'll just give you an example. Today, most of the enterprises are struggling for talent, even in cloud, in multi-cloud. I was sitting in the AWS reInvent, and the CEO of AWS presented. In about an hour, he actually introduced 20 microservices. And in every month, they introduce 100 microservices. Imagine, how can you keep your talent updated? And this is creating a big issue. So my point is, the frameworks will change, but you will need to go at it with the ecosystem of partners. And that's very important for the CIOs to start thinking about now. Not only enhancing their skills, but also creating this ecosystem of partners that you can depend on to take you to the future.
And Amar, can I just build on it? Because when we were talking earlier today, I think one of the points just on this exact line is around the notion of, all these companies, we're all working in like a hybrid environment today, right? Some companies have said you got to come back to the office, and still you only see 10% of the people back in the offices. And I think, consistent with your comment, I think the notion of hybrid and ecosystem of capabilities will just be on steroids. You're going to have to really work in a hybrid environment where people are not just working from home and in the office, but working from all over the world. And those organizations that really nail that and do that well, I think will have a meaningful competitive advantage. And it's not just hybrid within your own 4 walls. Yeah. It's hybrid with all the other partners you're working with as well.
Yep. And just to build upon that, I also agree. I think small teams delivering small increments of work, doing it at a faster pace, and with the broader ecosystem outside, and also the ecosystem and the dynamics that are inside. They won't be just IT-only teams. They will be more cross-functional teams. So I think all these trends are going to be coming to us, I think, faster, to Amar's point, than we think. It will be before 2030, actually.
Yeah, if I can just add a plug here. See, I think we are seeing it today, by the way, right? There's skills shortage. So we created it's not a plug for the company, but we created something called Elastic Engineering, where it's almost like a Uber of engineering skills that organizations can use, and these are experts in cloud, they're experts in the cloud architecture, and so on and so forth. So we are seeing it today, to Alex's point. It's going to be an ecosystem of capabilities.
So we have to start wrapping up. Sure. So to wrap up, let's do this very quickly. Yeah. What's one takeaway you want CIOs in this audience to take from this conversation, especially with version 2030 in mind. Alex?
My quick comment will just be the time is now. I have not seen in the last 20 years in which the CIO, CTO, Chief Digital Officer, Chief Analytic Officer has a greater ability to shape the organization as ever before. And so I would just say, the next 7 years, I think the time is now to really be the difference maker in your organization, and just anything you can do to help drive that faster, that digital transformation faster, I think is what I'd leave you with.
Amar?
I think I'll just build on exactly what Alex said, but I would say it is important that CIOs become tech-savvy general managers, as I said before, because you'll, in future, not very distant future, in near future, you'll start not only leading, shaping, but also synchronizing and populating digital enterprise strategies with ideas. We talk about talent as well as technology. So I think if you are not getting business-oriented and business-savvy, you may be not relevant, because you will be called on to help digitize the organization sooner than what you expect.
Yeah.
So it should start with you. Whether your organization is ready or not, you need to be ready, because they're going to come asking for help now.
Just to add to that, I think when we sit in the C-suite, the CIO is the architect of the future version of the company. And I think that's our new role as we think about this. With that one, I would like to really thank Alex and Amar for really great insights, for great questions. And we can keep having this conversation, so I'm sure all three of us are available to continue this conversation later. I know we are standing in between this and the closure of this event, so thank you, everyone. Another round of applause, please.
Thank you.